They had just found the road marker at dawn, the stone that pointed the way to Athens, when the dog raiders had appeared out of nowhere. Colax had bolted in the opposite direction, leading half of the 24 enemy riders back toward the mountain. The boy, no doubt, was dead by now. Nikias felt Photone slow as she came to a bend in the road. He glanced quickly over his shoulder and caught a glimpse of the riders, dark shapes in the fog, wearing plate armor and black cloaks, spear tips glinting in the gray morning light. He dug his heels into his horse's sides and she jolted forward. Another mile or so. That's all Photone had in her. His heart sank. Athens, the city he was urgently trying to reach, was 25 miles away at the end of this treacherous white limestone road, a road scored on either side with deep tracks that had been carved by cart and chariot wheels. And it was getting harder to keep Photone in the center of the road. She kept veering to one side. If she stepped in one of those tracks, her leg would snap like a stick, and he would be thrown over her neck, landing in a helpless, broken heap upon the road. "Better to die facing your enemy than with a spear in your backside," he mused grimly. "Better to go out swinging." That's what his grandfather always said. He kicked Photone with his heels and she went faster, putting some distance between them and the dog raiders. Nikias hoped he might come to a bridge or some place where the road narrowed. There, at least, he could make a stand, using his bow and arrow to kill the enemy horses from a distance, blocking the way with their corpses. He would much rather fight on his feet than on horseback, for he had been educated since childhood in the art of pancration, the battle training that turned every part of a man's body into a weapon, from the heel to the crown of the head. Despite his youth, he was one of the best pancrators in the Oxlands, quite possibly in all of Greece. He was the grandson of a renowned Olympic pancration champion, a man who'd taught him to be fierce by punching fierceness into his flesh like a blacksmith hammering a sword. His training had worked. Even though Nikias had just turned 18, he was already famous in his independent city-state of Plataea. He'd fought men to death with his bare fists and wielded sword and spear in the wild and bloody chaos of battle. He'd faced down the enemy Theban invaders with the courage of the Nemean lion, the legendary beast whose name his family of warriors had taken as its own. But now, chased on horseback down the road to Athens with a pack of dog raiders gaining on him with every second, Nikias felt more like a terrified fawn than a deadly predator. He touched his elbow to the Sargatian whip coiled on his belt. His grandfather's Persian slave had braided it from the entire hide of an ox, and it was an excellent weapon, especially when wielded with skill. By the time he was 8 years old, Nikias could snap a fly off a wall from 20 feet away. But the whip was impossible to use when riding at full gallop. He heard something made of wood clatter on the road behind. One of the dog raiders had thrown a javelin at him, but it had fallen short. Nikias was still just out of range. He touched his stomach, the place where he wore a heavy leather pouch strapped to his midriff. The pouch was filled with Persian gold coins, enough wealth to buy several prosperous farms in the Oxlands. The coins had been found hidden in the trader Nocleides' house. It was blood money paid to the trader for his part in opening the city gates of Plataea and letting in a Theban attack force. A little more than a week had passed since that terrible night, the night when Nikias' mother and most of his friends had been killed by the invaders. But the Thebans had failed to conquer Plataea. Nikias planned to use this tainted fortune in Persian gold to lure a small army of mercenaries back to Plataea to help defend the walled citadel from Plataea's newest threat, an army of Spartans that had appeared in the Oxlands hard on the heels of the defeated Thebans. The Spartans had demanded that Plataea break its alliance with Athens, or else they would lay siege to Plataea. Nikias knew that his city needed good fighters, especially archers, to help man the 2.5 miles of walls that surrounded the citadel. Too many good Plataean warriors had been killed during the Theban sneak attack. But to get to Athens and its abundance of sellswords, Nikias had to first pass